Welcome to the question of the day. Today's question is from Tyler in Nebraska. And Tyler asks, how do I manage my time when my schedule is completely driven by the customer and running calls? I don't have a 9 to 5 job where I have planned out meetings and stuff. Great question, Tyler. I get this question a lot from sales because there's a lot of time management books and tutorials and how do you make a calendar and stuff like that. But sales is tough because you are at the mercy of the customer, right? Like you have to be available when the customer is available. And that's why sales can be difficult to manage your time. But you can still do it if you follow some key principles, but then make some modifications based on the sales field here. Because, yeah, the thing is, like, sales, a lot of times we think it's just running calls, right? Like, you just go run calls, you collect money, and like you're done, right? And sometimes you don't even have to collect the money. But there's a lot of other things that you have to do as a salesperson, right? Like you have to do things like you have to follow up, you have to answer emails, you have to make sure the jobs are put in correctly and installed correctly. You got to go visit those jobs and make sure the customer is completely satisfied. And if not, you gotta fix that. You got to coaching calls and trainings and team meetings. Like you got a lot of other stuff that you have to do in addition to just running calls. So my go-to with time management is Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. So it's a fantastic book. If you have not read that book, that's your first takeaway here. Read that book, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. Now, in that book, I want you to pay special attention to, he goes over what I call the Covey quadrants. I can't remember if that's what he calls it, but that's what I call it, the Covey quadrants. And basically the Covey quadrants is four quadrants. So imagine if you had like a vertical line and then a horizontal line making four different quadrants here. And in those quadrants, across the top, you have urgent. So on the left-hand side, the left two quadrants, those would be urgent things. Urgent means like they have to be done right now. Like it can't wait, has to be done right now. The right quadrants, the not urgent, would be things that, yeah, they got to get done. Like everything's got to get done, but you can move it around if you need to. It doesn't have to get done like this second, right? And so you have to decide, are things urgent or not urgent? But then separating the top and bottom is important. So along the left-hand side, it says important, and you have to decide, is it important? So the top two quadrants being these things are important, the bottom two quadrants being these are things that are not important. But I would add everything's important. Everything is a fire to somebody, but is it your fire? Is it important to you? So that'll come in as I explain these a little better. So you end up with these four quadrants: urgent and not urgent across the top, along the left-hand side, important and not important. So let's start in the top left quadrant. So that would be the things that are urgent and important. Okay, so they got to be done now and they're important to you. You're the one that's got to do them. So that's what he calls the manage quadrant. That's the things that you're going to manage. That becomes what you're doing first. An example of this would be running calls. There is a time component to running calls here. When the customer is available and willing to work with a salesperson, that's the time we got to run it. We can't move that around because we have all kinds of studies that show time is of the urgency here. And so the best study, the most famous study I'll share with you right now is my own study that I've done in my own home here when my wife and I sell something on Facebook Marketplace. So there'll be things that we sell and my wife and I will both post it. In fact, we use the same pictures with the same posting and we'll post it to Facebook to get twice the exposure, right? And so we put this on Marketplace, but I always end up selling the things and my wife doesn't. And she even says like, well, you need to post it too because like you always sell it. And same posting, same pictures, but what drives me to sell it? It's the urgency, the taking care of it right now. Because here's what I do different than my wife does. So my wife, she is not attached to her phone. God bless her. We shouldn't be attached to her phone. But in this instance, people will message about the item and they always message, hey, is this still available? She won't check her phone until the end of the night. And so if they messaged at like noon, it's going to be like 8 hours later before she's messaging back. Now, me, I've got my phone set up to my watch, right? And it dings. And especially when I'm selling something, I'm kind of keeping a close eye on it because I want to respond right away. So as soon as somebody responds and says, hey, is this thing still available? I immediately jump back on my phone and I say, yes, it is. What time can you come pick it up? I capture that moment because think about it. Right now, they're in the moment. They're looking at their phone. They're thinking of buying this thing enough so that they're about to message somebody about it. They're in that buying frame of mind, and I capture that. Whereas 8 hours from now, they got busy with something else that's less important now, and so they're not as interested, and so usually they don't get back. Running calls would be urgent and important. That's the key to your job, right? There's even studies in our industry that say every day that you don't run a call, like if a call drops to the next day, your chances of closing that drop in half every single day. You have very high chance of closing it if you're running it the day of, drops in half the second day and in half the day after and half and like, and so time is of the essence. So that's the manage, the top left quadrant. That's the urgent and important. Now, if you move over to the top right quadrant, that's what we call the focus quadrant. So that's not urgent, but it is important. Okay, so these are important things we should be doing, but it doesn't have to be done exactly right now. An example of that would be like training, like practicing your presentation, right? Role playing, repetitions. Those things are all important. They're vital. The best salespeople do those things. Amateurs practice till they get it right. Professionals practice till they can't get it wrong. But it doesn't have to be done this second. Like if I had a call to run, I could move that to later. Like I can move that around a little bit. But this is called the focus quadrant because we have to focus on this. If we lose focus on this, that's where we're going to start spinning our wheels. If I get sucked into some of the other things I'm about to talk about, then I don't get my training done. I don't practice my presentation, and then I have a poor presentation and I don't sell jobs. And so I have to make sure that stuff still gets done. That's why it's called the focus quadrant. Now, if I go down to the bottom left quadrant, that's the third quadrant. That's called the delegate quadrant. So this is stuff that is urgent. It has to get done now, but it's not important. So these are things that they may be a fire, they may be somebody's fire, but they're not your fire. And so that's why it's called the delegate quadrant. These are things we need to delegate to others. Here's a common one that comes up on my coaching calls. It would be, hey, I got other departments pulling me in to ask questions and giving them direction and stuff like that, but I'm not their boss, right? And you're a nice person, and so you do answer the questions, but it kind of becomes like a puppy, right? Like when you got a puppy, if the puppy pees on the floor and you pet it, it's going to keep peeing on the floor, right? And that's what you're doing. Like when these other departments come and ask you questions and you answer just because they're nice, because you're nice, you're kind of petting the puppy, right? Like they're going to keep coming to you for questions. And I'm not saying don't be a nice guy and answer questions, but like you have to manage your time here. So if they have a manager, they should be asking these questions. That's where you need to delegate it back to them. So with the puppy, you stick the puppy's nose in the pee and it learns not to pee, right? And here you would respond by saying, well, what did your manager say? I would check with them, right? And they're going to learn like, hey, when I have a question, I should be asking my manager instead of coming to you. I should go to my manager because you're just going to tell me to go to my manager anyways, right? So things like that. That's just one example, but that's the delegate. We got to get those things off your plate because these are the things, if you're spending all your time doing that and it's not your fire, that's going to steal your time away from that focus quadrant, the one that we need to focus on, like training. And then the fourth quadrant, the bottom right, It's not urgent, not important. It's called the limit quadrant. That's the stuff we need to just get rid of, right? And you know what that stuff is. That's sitting on Facebook in between calls or something like that. Like I used to notice when I went to the gym, I always have ESPN on at the gym. And my bad habit was I would start watching ESPN, but I noticed my time between reps and sets would get longer and longer. They'd have the top 10 list, and I'm like, oh, I just got to finish the top 10 list. Well, geez, 3 minutes goes by before I even get into my next set. And so my heart rate would go down and my workouts were less effective, right? So I needed to limit that where I just don't watch ESPN anymore when I'm at the gym. So that's the four quadrants there, but that leads us to the next section here. Now in the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey does a rock exercise, and that's where he's got a big jar and then he's got different rocks at different sizes. He's got some big rocks, some medium rocks, some small rocks, and then sand. And he challenges, people to fit all that into the jar. And you can't, right? Like, cause he's already got the sand in the jar. And so when you try to put the other things in, they don't fit. And the trick is you have to get everything out of that jar and you start with the big things. And he says, first things first, right? You start with the big rocks. When you put those big rocks in, then you can put the medium rocks in, and then the little rocks kind of fill in the gaps. And then you pour the sand in, and the sand fills all the gaps. So same exercise, but now you got all the rocks in the jar just based on how you went about it. Same thing with us, okay? Those managed things, that's our big things. That's our big rocks. That's what we need to build our day around, build our schedule around. And and the tough part with sales is, like you said, I'm at the mercy of the customer, but you still kind of have an idea. Assume the worst. Assume the worst case scenario. I'm going to run 3 calls today. Those calls are each going to take 2 hours, and I'm going to run those calls at about 8, 11, and 2, or whatever your schedule is, right? But that's what I'm going to build my calendar around. It's probably going to be something like that, worst case scenario. That's my big rocks. Start with that, and then all the other things start building in around that. Now, I would limit myself to 3 additional things I'm going to do every day. There's more. There's definitely more, but prioritize and focus on just 3 things. And the reason I would say 3 things is because we as people overestimate what we can do in a day and underestimate what we can do in a year. Limit yourself to just 3. And what I do, I have Post-it notes, and every day I write my 3 things down. Those are the 3 things I have to get done. You can do the same thing. And it could be whatever you prioritize that day. Hey, I need to follow up. I need to call that customer back and answer some questions. And then I need to go check on that job, whatever those 3 things are. But those 3 things, you can build that around those 3 calls that you're going to be running that day. Now, I would add one thing to this. So this is where it gets different for sales. I would keep a bigger list somewhere on a computer or a notebook, something like that. Keep a bigger list of the things you have to get done. Not today, but just things that need to get done. And I would break that list into 3 categories. And I would call the 3 categories the now category, the soon category, and the long-term category. Everything you ever have to get done, it goes on there somewhere. And that helps you prioritize and not lose track of the things that you have to be doing. So like a now thing, that would be like, I got to answer some install questions about a job, right? A soon thing would be like, hey, I got to practice my presentation before our next sales meeting. And a long term would be, I want to attend the objection boot camp before the end of the year, something like that, right? But keep track of these things. Now, this isn't your 3 that go on the Post-it note, but this is like everything else, so you don't lose track of it. Now, we had built our day around 3 calls. Let's say we only got 2 calls. Now I got 2 hours, maybe a little more, back in my schedule. And I'm easily going to accomplish my 3 things on my Post-it note. This is where I now go to that master list and I start with the now things. What are the things I can get done right now? And once I get those done, shift over. What are the things that are coming soon that I need to get done? Start working on those. and then shift over to the long-term things. And everything over time kind of shifts through that list, right? Eventually, as a year goes on, that objection boot camp will become a soon and a now, like I got to get it scheduled kind of thing. This is going to keep you on task so that now you have a plan. You built everything in your Covey quadrants. You now know what you need to manage, what you need to focus on, what you need to delegate, and what you need to limit. You build your day around your 3 sales calls. Start with the big things, work in 3 more things, but you got a master list so that if I don't get my 3 calls or I find myself with more time, now I got something I can pivot to, and now I can accomplish a 4th thing today, a 5th thing today, a 6th thing today. This is a plan. You have a plan now. Ben Franklin said, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Make your plan today. If you make that plan today, now you will have a plan. And then tomorrow, execute your plan. And then just pivot as needed, because plans never go the way they're supposed to go. I learned that when we had our first kid. We planned everything, and everything we planned for didn't happen. You pivot, but because you got a plan, you can pivot easily and still make it work. And the last thing I would say is be mindful of what you accomplish, right? If you don't accomplish your 3 things one day, take solace in the fact you accomplished 2, right? Like, focus on those positives. You still accomplished 2. Tomorrow, I'm going to accomplish 3 though. So be very mindful, be very grateful and proud of yourself of whatever you do accomplish, because nobody's perfect. But make that plan today. So here's your takeaways. If you haven't read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, read that book and start making your plan today. That's today's question of the day. Follow and give a rating. Question of the day is on major streaming platforms. If you have a question, reach out to me either on social media or email. Both are going to be listed below in the show description. Let's get it answered. Or if you're a Nexstar member, schedule a call with me. Let's get this addressed one-on-one. Let's dive into your specific situation. I'm Coach Chris. We'll see you tomorrow.